So, because I have this on recording, so I will be a lot to edit. So, starting now. Okay, so this is what Harry sent me. Let me double check everything with you. So, Harry, this is appeal paragraph, right? Okay, appeal paragraph. Okay, so let's go through. Udoguru Nunaka has created an emphasis on racism and the social divide between the color of people through her utilization of metaphors. An example of Nunaka using metaphors can be seen in line 2, puzzled and hurt by the color line. From this short quote, Nunako has applied metaphors towards the color line to demonstrate that racism is occurring. This message has been conveyed by Nunako's intentional use of the color line as the key word. The color line is effective in this context because the subject of the matter here is about discrimination. Furthermore, the use of metaphor in this context benefits to the poem because the words puzzled, hurt, and color line all allude the reader into thinking that the poem is discussing something negative. Isaac, do you have any comments on this? No, no comments. Okay. Furthermore, the use of metaphor in this. Okay, very good, Harry. What did you say you needed help with for the highlight? So okay, so you said highlight is for help with E and the L. Okay. No. So this is the okay. So I'm gonna go through. Has created an emphasis on racism and the social divide between the color of people through her utilization of metaphors. Okay, so if you read through this again, she has created or emphasized the social divide between the color of people. Not really. She's emphasizing the racism and the social divide as a result of the color of the people. Okay? Yeah. So she's not emphasizing that these people are part through the use of the color of the people. She's not changing anything, right? She's just saying that the color of the people, the color, right? Yeah, is metaphoricized to say this is what makes people different. It's not, right? Color of the people. Sure, if there's a lot of wording, diction that relates to color, for example, shade, tone, highlight, whatever the words that really relate to the word color. You don't want to just say symbolism based on one word, right? So I really like your use of metaphor here because it definitely is a metaphor when you say color of the people. Okay. Puzzled and hurt by the color line. Well, here we have a lot of emotive language, right? Puzzled and hurt by the color line. Yeah, so emotive language of confusion, hurt is what? Emotional pain, we can say. So, how can a color line cause this? We can say that she's talking about the racism, but racism by itself doesn't do anything. We need to know the definition of racism is literally just to say that you're different to me because of your race. We know that that's necessarily true. When racism is bad and the negative effects of racism is when we treat other people differently and in particular negatively. We call that discrimination. That is when racism is bad. So we can't just don't say demonstrate the race, demonstrate the discrimination because only through discrimination, yeah, we can say the negative aspects, the painful aspects, the the isolating discrimination, build upon your terminology. That is the way we can say. So it demonstrates the isolating discrimination that people of color, Aboriginal people, Indigenous people, right? You can say whatever, are experiencing. So not that is occurring. You can be very specific by saying the color line represents the physical manifestation of how color, skin color. Oh, did it stop? Oh, sorry. Someone called me. Sorry. Let me reshare my screen. So present screen, start broadcast. Present screen, start broadcast. Okay. So let me go back. So as I was saying, so going back to Nunaka's applied metaphors towards the color line. Yep. So she doesn't apply metaphor. You don't really apply a metaphor. You utilize a metaphor. You employ a metaphor, right? Okay, good. So other than that, the message has been conveyed by Nunaka. This message has been conveyed by Nunaka's intentional use of the color line as the keyword. What is the keyword, Harry? Color line as the key. I mean, like keyword. We don't really use the keyword. Do you mean as the color line as the metaphor? This message has been conveyed by Nunaka's intentional use of the color line as the keyword. I don't think you need the sentence because it doesn't say anything useful. Okay. The color line is effective in this context because the subject of the matter here is about discrimination. Very good. So you talked about discrimination. The color line is effective in this context because, so the subject of matter, I think what you want to talk about is the author's purpose or Nunakao's idea, or, you know, what Nunakao is trying to get across, right? So furthermore, the use of metaphor in this context benefits to the poem because the words puzzled, hurt, and color line all allude the reader into thinking that the poem is discussing something negative. Good. Except in here, allude, I would replace it with something like all, allude, because allude we typically mean that it is revealed, whereas this is very explicit, right? So alluding Harry to, like, Harry, you know, did you bring your umbrella today, is alluding you to the fact that I think it's going to rain later. In this case, it's not really alluding. Rather, it's, yeah, it's suggesting, suggesting the negative associations with the word color line, and particularly discriminating aspects of it. In terms of link, you know, this paragraph is very self-sufficient. So this is already a very good paragraph. And you could definitely, this is like year 10 level English maybe, if you can just fix the fluency of the text, okay? But as you can see, it's also very small. So you're missing a lot of, for example, this is just one EEL, right? Normally we have 2 or 3 of them. So right now, this is just, what I mean is year 10 level is the quality is year 10 level, but it's not a year 10 level paragraph because, you know, normally we'd go P, E, 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 L, okay? And then the level of ideas will be deeper. But for year A level, this is already very good because you have the structure down pat, everything's very good. Did you have any questions, Harry? You don't know how to explain how a metaphor is effective. Sure, I'll explain to you one now. Just take note, or I'm gonna upload this in a video. Okay. So how I would explain this. Oh, Isaac, are you still listening? Everything okay? Okay. So in this case, the example or the evidence is, so just for everyone listening as well. Peel doesn't have to be PEEL. Doesn't have to be evidence or explanation first. Doesn't matter which one goes first. Depends on the idea or the context. For example, in an analysis, you want to present the evidence and then explain the evidence. So the first E would be evidence or explanation, evidence first, right? Or example. Whereas in a story, you want to, you know, explain the author's ideas. If you're breaking apart the narrative, you want to explain what J.K. Rowling's talking about in Harry Potter and then justify your theories with evidence, right? So the P, E, and the 2 E's, they're in different orders. In this case, when you're writing an analysis, present the evidence first, okay? And just like, you know, we did here, you know, this is seen in line 2, right? So this is very good. So present with the evidence first and then break it down, as we saw. In my case, what would I do for the 2 E's? I would say, okay, your idea was that Nunakao creates an emphasis on racism and the social divide between the color of people through utilization of metaphors. An example, a metaphor, so I would explain firstly, what I would do is I would define metaphor. Okay, so I would say, okay, what is a metaphor? A metaphor is a use of figurative language whereby we compare two things to each other, or stating something is directly something else, thereby allowing it to, you know, get the properties of another thing that is compared to. Yeah, sure, you can say that. Whatever you want to say, however you want to define it. So I'll define metaphor first, and then I'd say an effective use of metaphor is seen throughout. So I wouldn't just focus on one metaphor. I'd focus on her use of discriminatory metaphor, isolating metaphor. So a themed metaphor. I'd say, okay, she talks about emotive language for one paragraph. The second paragraph, I'll probably talk about, as I said, discriminatory metaphors. So color of people is a metaphor that is used to show discrimination. There's always going to be other metaphors that she uses. Um, so I'll even talk about the line, how the word line itself can be, is showing the physical separation between the populations, which is not there, right? So I'll show how powerful using these words are. So I would say, as seen in line 2, Luna Carl's use of the word color line can be seen not only showing the separation between people of color, but also showing the power that this separation manifests itself as, which would be a social divide. Okay, so I'm just really rephrasing whatever you said, but in a more detailed way, right? Did you have a question, Harry? Well, symbolism and metaphor are very closely intertwined, right? Yeah, symbolism is just a direct, it's similar to an extended metaphor. Okay, so I define metaphor example, but as I said, I will typically use a thematic approach. So I'll have a more beefy thing to write about. You guys don't have to do that because it's only 300 to 500 word essay. Just stick to the peel, okay? Um, Example. So I told you how I would do the example, and then I'll explain it. Nunakal's use of metaphors in this case. Oh, so I already explained most of it, to be honest. But Nunakal's use of the metaphor in this case um, really shows the physicality of the divide between society, whereby people are separated not only by the color line, but also into different hierarchies, whereby people of color or black people are sort of considered lower tier in the social ladder than the higher people because so she's obviously a person of color. She's a black person, and she's puzzled and hurt by the color line. We can see that she feels inferior. She feels um, hurt or pained by the color line. Okay. The what I'm saying, you need more evidence for to propose that idea. But I've read through the poem with you, so I know what the poem's talking about. You want to get more ideas or overarching emotions that the author is projecting out. Okay. Yeah, so that is that. And then finally, I'll just conclude with a L. I'd say, okay, Nunakal's use of metaphor um, effectively, we'll just say summarizes or demonstrates the detrimental effects, both physically and mentally or socially or spiritually or psychologically, emotionally. You can talk about any kind of um, manifestation of the pain, right? So you say in whatever way the people of color would experience the discrimination, and as such, she so go back to A does B through C to do D, right? You want to talk about what the audience feels. In this case, it would be and effectively demonstrates or effectively makes people realize how people of color or the discriminated people are hurt by this kind of discrimination, and that would be a link. Does that make sense? So Isaac, I talked to you about the link, which was you just really have to go back to your thesis sentence in introduction and revisit the D, which is the effect on the audience, right? Remember that, Isaac? Yeah. So in that case, if you just want to rewind the recording, I'll upload later. Same thing. You just want to re-talk about the effect on the audience. So yeah, I wanted to quickly talk about it one more time. One more time, I'm going to show you guys the structure, okay? Intro. So one thing. Intro. Peel. Okay? X2. So we talked about the peel. I'm going to skip that. And then conclusion. Okay? Intro. I want a... Yeah. Quickly, you want to start off with this, okay? So you're going to talk about the poet, okay? Talk about the poem. Nonagal Baba was a poet. Depending on what poem you get, your teacher might give you more information about the background of the poet. Maybe she won't, maybe she will, who knows. But if she does, just talk about the poet and talk about the poem. So the poem is what, and what is the general ideas being given, okay? Between here, if you know your history, you can talk about the context. So this poem was written in 1920s where the rabbit-proof fence was being built or whatever. So just provide more context. So provide beefiness to your essay. Okay, good. So far making sense. So this is just, it's general introduction. You want to let the teacher know that you know what you're talking about. And it's, you're just talking off. You don't need any like formulas for this. You're just providing context, okay? Other than this, now you want to get into your thesis, okay? So A does B through C to do D. I'll talk about it again. A is poet, use the last name. B is what does the poet do? So what is the author's purpose, okay? You might get something talking about sharing Aboriginal culture. You might get something about explaining a misconception. It might be talking about revealing the discrimination in racism. Whatever it is, what is the author's purpose? So A does B through C. So how does the author do this? Okay, normally, I give you guys A does B through C to do D is because when in the higher levels, you would only focus on one idea, so one metaphor, or one technique. So metaphor, symbolism, because each poem would have multiple layers of metaphor and symbolism. But in your case, just say through the use of poetic devices, through the use of figurative language, whatever. It will be like an overarching idea because you're only going to be talking about one thing at once, right? So for C, just stick to this, poetic devices. Okay? Through the use of poetic devices to do D, and this is the effect on the audience. What is the author writing this for? Why did Harry Styles write Watermelon Sugar? He's trying to share his love for summer or something, okay? So, right. And that this is a very good formula to show you understand the purpose of the poem. In conclusion, what do? You just re-summarize. What are the poetic devices used? Okay? So 1 and 2. You'll talk about it. Is it structure? Is it rhyming? Is it metaphor? Is it symbolism? Is it imagery? Doesn't matter what you use. I've taught you guys many over the last few weeks. Put that in, okay? And so Nunagal uses metaphor as well as this to talk about this, okay? And to talk about what? To talk about B and D. So talk about these two again. B is, A does B. So what is the poet doing, okay? And D is the effect on the reader. So basically, this is just a very, fat summary of what you need to do, which is restate. The conclusion is always to get the reader to have a general overview again of what you talked about. And then finally end on something. F for T. Remember this. And, you don't have to do this. Every teacher will teach you differently. But trust me, like the ways I always get my marks in English is end on a good food for thought. You spend like a solid 3 minutes on this, maybe. One sentence. For example, on Harry's Caroline, I talked about that in the last analysis. In terms of something like Harry Potter, then, do you guys want to give me an example of a food for thought if you're going to analyze Harry Potter for friendship? Okay. Friendship. Yeah? Isaac, do you have anything as well? So talk about, and Harry as well. So anything you have on friendship for Harry Potter, food for thought. Do you want to give me an example? Okay, so this is what I mean. There's macro and micro. This is just micro is within the text, within the poem. Okay, so Harry Potter friendship manifests itself between Harry, Ron, and Hermione as a triple entente very effectively. Now you want to talk about macro, so outside of the poem. Okay, you can bring this out and say, J.K. Rowling demonstrates to us the power of friendship and why we, as the audience, as the readers, can fully leverage the power of friendship to do things we couldn't do by ourselves. Something like that, right? Or not the best case scenario. This is just a very lazy way to do this. Is as can be seen above, or as can be seen, Nunagal has demonstrated why she can talk about contemporary issues in an effective manner and will stay forever a legendary poet or something like that. Okay, so just re-acknowledge the poet. That is just a lazy way to do it. You can do that if you want, but that will always work, right? Therefore, Shakespeare has shown why he is legendary. Therefore, J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter is going to pass down to generations. Okay, makes sense, guys? Isaac, any questions? Any questions, Isaac? No? And Harry, you're okay now? Send you a pure paragraph. I've sent it to you on the check the Google Classrooms. Go through it. I think in one of those I included a pure paragraph example for you, didn't I? Yeah. So in a few weeks back, I've done it multiple times with you. Yeah. So go through that. And any questions for both of you? Nah. Okay. I'll see you guys soon. Okay. Good luck. Okay. Bye bye.